Welcome to MidPoint. I'm Sean Conan. I'm the host of MidPoint Monday. Today we're going to look again at the climate catastrophe, and we'll hear about a group of youth who are suing the state of Florida for not doing enough to protect the climate. One of our guests is one of the young people, and we'll also hear from one of her lawyers, and we'll take your calls. Here's the number to call in, 813-239-9663. If you'd like to email, you can email dj at WMNF.org. You can also text 813-433-0885. Well, 8 young Floridians have sued the state of Florida, Governor Rick Scott, and others for violating their constitutional rights by endangering their futures through not doing enough to control the runaway problem of climate change. So today we're going to hear from one young plaintiff and from one of her lawyers. Delaney Reynolds is an 18-year-old college freshman and a climate activist from Miami, and Guy Burns is an attorney and managing partner at Johnson, Boker, Rupel, and Burns, based in Tampa. They're part of the team suing Florida for not taking action on the climate disaster. So welcome to WMNF's MidPoint, Delaney and Guy.
Good to be here.
You there? Yeah, thanks so much, Delaney, and please call me Sean. So let's begin by asking, why do you say, and these are words from your lawsuit, that you've been seriously injured because of Florida officials' indifference to your fundamental rights to a stable climate system? That's the guest of Delaney Reynolds. She's calling in from Miami. She's an 18-year-old college freshman and climate activist from Miami. Let me ask you this, and I don't know if you, Delaney, want to answer this or if Guy wants to answer, but how did you pick which defendants to sue? Let me read the list of people and agencies that you're suing. You're suing the state of Florida and its Governor Rick Scott, the Florida Department of Environmental Protection and its Secretary Noah Valenstein, Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services and its Commissioner Adam Putnam, the Florida Board of Trustees of Internal Improvement Trust Fund, and the Florida Public Service Commission. So why are these the organizations and people that you're suing?
Delaney, I'll go ahead and take that one. That's because the Florida Constitution and various statutes in the state of Florida have imposed obligations on these constitutional officers and the various others that we've named. The Florida Constitution in Article 2, Section 7 also has a provision that we say is in the nature of a trust, that the governor and Commissioner Putnam and Mr. Valenstein are essentially among those who are trustees of the environment for the benefit of the Floridians, including the plaintiffs in this case.
Have you gotten any formal legal response yet from any of these people that you're suing?
Not yet. We've just filed the case. Service of process is being affected. I think it's mostly been accomplished, but they then have 20 days to respond. It's not unusual that defendants ask for extra time to respond, so we're in the early stages.
Well, let's hear from Governor Rick Scott, because reporters asked about this the day or the day after this lawsuit was filed about a week and a half ago, if I'm not mistaken. And so Governor Scott was asked this by reporters, and he didn't give a very long answer, as you might expect, because people usually don't comment on pending lawsuits. But here is Governor Rick Scott's response. We're working hard to solve problems, and he talked a lot about moving water south through the Everglades, and this was in response to a question about this lawsuit, this wide-arching lawsuit about Florida's not doing enough to stop carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gas emissions, and So I should ask Delaney, what do you think about Governor Rick Scott's response there?
This girl's sharp.
He won't be able to. It does not exist. So his response was basically just political theater. It was a farce, and it's him suggesting that he and the state are actually addressing climate change and concerned about it, and it's just simply not.
So Guy, do you have anything to add to what Delaney's saying?
Yes, Delaney gave a very intelligent response to what a lawyer might say is irrelevant as far as my response to the governor's comments. I think Delaney and all the plaintiffs would regard money spent on Everglades restoration as a laudable thing to do, although, as she points out, it's been years in the making. But our lawsuit deals with carbon emissions and greenhouse gases and the environmental effect of those toxins being placed in our environment in ever-increasing large measures, and the subsequent rise of temperature of the seas and sea level rise and other environmental disasters and pending disasters that go along with the greenhouse gas problem. Nothing that Governor Scott said directs itself to the greenhouse gas problem, which is what our lawsuit's about, so his comments are irrelevant and somewhat of a distraction to the real issue.
And it makes you wonder, I don't know how far out on a limb I want to go here, but it makes you wonder whether the governor even really understands what the issue is. I mean, if you start talking about moving water south toward Lake Okeechobee, when your question is about greenhouse gas emissions, I mean, it makes me wonder, I have to say, I have to be honest, it makes me wonder whether he even understands what it's all about.
Well, I'll give my 2 cents worth and then Delaney can follow, but politicians generally, and Governor Scott is adept at being a politician, although he claims not to be one, but no matter what question you ask a politician, they're very adept at what they call pivoting and moving to something else that they want to say that really may not be responsive to the question at hand, and I think that's just what he did there.
Sure, and Delaney? Our guest is Delaney Reynolds. She's an 18-year-old college freshman and a climate activist from Miami. She's one of 8 young Floridians who are suing Governor Rick Scott and the state of Florida and some of the agencies and other department heads in the state of Florida for not taking action on the climate disaster. And you're listening to WMNF's Midpoint. It's on 88.5 FM. It's 12:16 in the afternoon. Here's the number to call in, 813-239-9663. You can also email dj@wmnf.org or text 433-0885. Let's take a question from Richard in Clearwater. Hi, Richard.
Environmental sustainability program, and one of the main issues, that's not really a question, I just wanted to make a statement. One of the main issues that these politicians need to come to the grips of is acknowledging the fact that there is climate change, and they won't. That stance alone shows you their ignorance in how they won't address the biggest problem. And there's probably a million problems to get to the big problem, and they don't want to acknowledge any of those problems. So until they do, we're not going to get anything done.
Richard, thanks for that call. And so Delaney, let's take it from there. That's one of the things that you're asking for in your lawsuit. If you win, if the judge decides to take your side, one of the things that you're asking for is for the leaders in Florida to acknowledge climate change. And Guy, I should ask you, Delaney there said that the state should enforce the public trust doctrine. What does that mean?
Well, it means that the cabinet, and particularly the governor, is the lead, and Commissioner Putnam, who has certain responsibilities as Secretary of Agriculture, sit as fiduciaries for the environment for the benefit of people. Just like if there was a trust that your grandmother left to you and left the First National Bank as the trustee, they would have a fiduciary duty to you to protect the assets of the trust, to make sure they're properly invested. The Constitution of the state of Florida and the common law that predates the existence of Florida both hold that the environment is a matter in which the leaders, the elected officials, hold in trust for the benefit of its citizenry. And we simply want a declaration of facts, first of all, finding of facts that the climate change is real, that it's man-made, that it has having adverse effects on the environment, and then making the state's leaders discharge their fiduciary duties with coming up with a plan that's going to cut carbon emissions and to begin to deal with this problem. Failing the state coming up with a sufficient plan, we'll ask the court to impose its own plan. But we think that if you compare this to a school busing case, the courts first found, number one, there's a segregation in place. We need to desegregate, and they told the school boards, go come up with an integration plan that cures the problem. And then if the school boards failed to do that, then the courts took jurisdiction and said, we're going to go ahead and make up a plan and force that upon you. So it's a similar process that we're going to go through here.
our guest, our Guy Burns, an attorney who is helping out in a lawsuit, and are you doing this, I should ask this, are you doing this pro bono, or what does the Our Children's Trust have to do with the lawsuit?
Our Children's Trust acts as a group that supports litigation throughout the country and other efforts, not just litigation, involving climate issues and environmental issues. The lawyers, myself, and all the others are in the case pro bono. We do not receive any compensation for our time or effort.
And I want to know a little bit more about Our Children's Trust, and maybe Delaney, are you a good person to ask about that? Yeah, so just, I went to their website, and this is not the only place where action is being taken by our Florida Trust. You have indigenous children or youth in Alaska, maybe it was. Oh, I forget. So why don't you educate me as well as our listeners about some of the other things that our Children's Trust is doing? And the common thread is that these young people are saying, we want our future protected, and we want the environment protected for our future, and so we're going to take legal action to help to make that happen.
Our Children's Trust has coordinated this litigation, and they also they have some in-house counsel that are environmental experts and have the ability to help people like me who are appearing pro bono to do research and provide backup for us. In addition, there are a number of scientists, world-renowned experts that our Children's Trust has relationships with, so they can help us marshal the scientific evidence to put that in front of the court in form of testimony and expert reports, etc. So our Children's Trust has been invaluable. They started the federal case in 2015. That's been through and survived motions to dismiss. The government took an appeal trying to halt the case, and has passed that appeal, and as Delaney said, in late October, the trial in Oregon starts on that federal case.
That's Juliana versus United States?
Yes.
813-239-9663 is the number to call. We do have a lot of people on the line right now, but I think we have an open line. You can also email dj@wmnf.org or text 813-433-0885. My name is Sean Canan. I'm the host of MidPoint Monday. It's 12:24 in the afternoon. Our guests are Guy Burns, an attorney, and Delaney Reynolds, an 18-year-old college freshman. She's part of a team of 8 young Floridians who are suing the state of Florida and some of the officers in Florida in order to help protect their future from climate change and the effects of climate change. Let's hear now from John in St. Petersburg. Hi, John.
I'm a second-generation Floridian. I knew Florida before Disney, and I want to thank you both for what you're doing. It's remarkable, and it seems to me that maybe a ray of hope in what's happened to Florida. I have 2 questions, and one is what's the legal precedent, the case law for this? Has this sort of thing worked in Florida, and has it worked elsewhere? My second question is, I'm sure that Scott and Putnam et al. Will drag their feet. What happens to the case if we get people who are not climate refusers into Tallahassee after November?
Yeah, good questions. Guy, you want to take those?
Yeah. John, good questions. First, there is a precedent for the public trust theory, which is the backbone of the case. Although, quite frankly, we're not going to find a great number of cases out there that have tracked exactly what we're talking about, and so we're trying to I don't want to say make new law, but we're trying to expand and build on the existing law as a result, result of this case, and to enforce the public trust doctrine. The next part of your question is what happens after the next elections, which in November we're going to have a different governor and a different commissioner of agriculture. And so this case is not against either Governor Scott personally or Commissioner Putnam personally or any of the other defendants. It's against them in their official capacity. So whoever becomes governor would be substituted in for Governor Scott. As a veteran of some of the school cases, what happens is new school boards get elected, and occasionally you find a group that wants to work to solve the problem as opposed to resist the problem. And we've been successful in those cases in settling some of these matters in an amicable fashion, and leaving the court in place to have jurisdiction to enforce that settlement. So maybe I'm overly optimistic, but I would hope that the voters pay attention to this issue, that the person and the people that they elect in the fall are more sensitive to the issue than the current office holders, and that we might all, in fact, get together and decide that something needs to be done, and we can fashion out a remedy, and Delaney can negotiate with the new governor to have a good result.
John, thanks so much for your call. 813-239-9663 is the number to call in if you'd like to ask a question of Delaney or of Guy. And I have someone who texted in a series of questions, and I'm going to see if I can maybe pick one or two of them. And it was Jeff in Newport Richey. He writes a couple of things, but one is he must have missed the beginning of the show. He says, I'm going to use Jeff's words. Even though he's making a derogatory comment about our young guest, he says, ask this featherbrain exactly what injury she has sustained through the negligence of the people she's suing. So Delaney, you must have tuned in late to hear what injury you have, but why don't you lay it out?
Passionate about climate because I've seen the effects get worse firsthand. Miami didn't used to flood when I was younger. The Florida Keys didn't used to flood when I was younger. And now they are. And it's only going to get worse. Right now in Miami-Dade County, it floods about 6 times per year. By 2030, by the time that I'm 30 years old, it's going to flood about 80 times per year. And by 2045, it could flood 380 times per year. So that means that some days it could even flood twice. So this issue is getting worse in my lifetime. I'm seeing the impacts, and so I'm extremely concerned, and that's why I've been so heavily involved, because my home is at risk here in Miami and in the Florida Keys. My fellow plaintiffs' homes are all at risk. They've all experienced other effects, and so I've been very negatively affected, also emotionally. It concerns me for my children's future, when I have children someday, when I have grandchildren someday. Will we even be able to live in South Florida? I hope that the answer will be yes, but that is something that seriously concerns me. And because of that, I've decided to finally take initiative and start to change things here in Florida, hopefully by suing the governor.
Delaney, are you a snorkeler or a diver? And is there anything about the marine environment that would be affected by climate change in Florida? Scott.
Yeah, a little bit further response to Jeff's question. First, I want to make sure that the listeners understand that these plaintiffs are not seeking any monetary damages for themselves. So if we prevail in this case, Delaney won't get any money, none of the other youth plaintiffs will get any money. But they represent the view, the interest of the public. Consider that as of now, this is not future, but as of now, the cities of Miami and Miami Beach have either spent or committed to spend several $100 million to raise their streets because just at a normal high tide, they're having street flooding. And that type of expenditure is going to be realized by most of the coastal communities, and most of our population lives on the coast, so the taxpayers are going to be paying for that. Next, we have issues like flood insurance. Is that going to continue to be either available at all, or is it going to continue to be affordable as people have to be forced off of the coast? Next, mortgages. The typical home mortgage is a 30-year mortgage. Our mortgage company is going to continue to lend into areas that are prone to flooding and high level and sea level rise. Those are issues that will come about in the lifetime of the youth plaintiffs. I'm a little older. Whether that affects my lifetime or not, I'd like to think it would, because I'd like to be around to see it, even though that's not good news. But the reality is, in Delaney's lifetime, these effects will not only be environmental, but they will be real economic impacts on the taxpayers and citizens of the state of Florida. Our leaders have an obligation to protect not only the environment, but have an obligation to protect the economic effects, adverse economic effects that will occur from that environmental change.
Our guests are attorney Guy Burns and Delaney Reynolds, an 18-year-old college freshman. She's one of 8 young Floridians who are suing the state of Florida and Governor Rick Scott and some others about the effects of climate change and the inaction that's happened in Florida. The number I'm going to give the number out to call again. We are going to go back to the phones in just a second. 813-239-9663. You can also email dj@wmnf.org. You can text 813-433-0885. You're listening to 88.5 FM WMNF in Tampa. It's 12:33 in the afternoon. My name is Sean Canan. I'm the host of MidPoint Monday. And Delaney, you were talking about floods and how in the future Miami could flood more than once a day on average. One of the most striking things in the 62-page lawsuit that you filed against Rick Scott and the others are this